8 teams are battling for survival in the EFL Championship, but who will come out on top? Obviously, there's a wide range of teams towards the bottom end of the division, and you could potentially say up to 15th place are still within that relegation scrap. With Derby County taking 3 wins from 3, it's really closed up the pack and really helped the Championship secure a proper relegation battle. But which teams will be staying in the Championship and who will be heading back down to League One? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, because it's a really interesting one. You could look at QPR and say they're sleepwalking back into the relegation fight. You could say that Swansea City are right within that as well. But for me, it starts off at 17th place with Portsmouth, who are currently sitting on 42 points. You've then got Oxford United also on 42 points. Hull City, I think, find themselves in it as well on 41. You've then got Stoke and Cardiff both on 39. Derby County on 38, currently sitting in that relegation spot, with Luton Town a few points behind on 35 in 23rd, and Plymouth Argyle in 33. We're going to take a look into all 8 of those teams and their run-ins and what I think could happen over the course of the next few weeks. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to stay tuned for all of my latest Championship and Derby County content heading your way. Obviously, we're 3 days out from the international break ending, so let me know your thoughts on this heading into that final 8 games of the season. But shall we get into the first team? Portsmouth are the first team we're going to look at, as they currently sit in 17th place on 42 points. And what a season they've kind of had. They spent the first few months sort of languishing down in the bottom, had a really good run around December, January period, which got them well out of trouble. And now all of a sudden they've lost a couple of games to Plymouth and Preston North End. Obviously, that's after a good victory against Leeds United. But now they find themselves sort of teetering on the edge of being within that relegation battle, in my opinion. I believe they're only 4 points away from Derby County, who currently sit in that relegation place. And they have some tough games coming up over the course of the next few weeks. On return from the international break, they face up against Blackburn Rovers, who are looking to get themselves back into playoff contention. They then head to Millwall and Coventry before facing up against Derby County at Fratton Park in what could be a relegation 6-pointer on the 12th of April. Norwich City then host Pompey before Pompey then host Watford at Fratton Park. You've then got Sheffield Wednesday that they've got to face up against, and on the final day they face up against Hull City, which could be an absolutely massive game for survival in this division. Now, when you look at Portsmouth, obviously currently sitting on 42 points. In my opinion, they probably need 8 points, probably less than that really, to secure their safety in the division. I personally think, and I've said for a while, that 50 points is the magic number in this division, but obviously that all depends on what happens with other teams. Obviously, if everyone below them struggles to pick up points, then 45 could be enough. But for me, I think Pompey do have enough in the tank in order to push themselves forward to survival this season. And if we look at where Pompey currently sit in the XG chart, they're 3 places higher than they are expected to be, and they've collected 3 less points than they probably should have. And that's something which is something to a credit of John Mousinho. Now, I'm not saying this team is a brilliant squad, I'm not. And I know they've picked up a lot of injuries over recent weeks, but they made some good signings in January. Hayden Matthews, Robert Atkinson, some really good signings in there. And obviously, you can't underestimate the talent that they've already got within the squad. The likes of Freddie Potts, the likes of Josh Murphy, Colby Bishop, some really good players in there. And I do think once they hit form, obviously they brought in the likes of Andre Dazal as well and Isaac Hayden, but when they hit their run of form, I think that was a really important time to hit it for John Mousinho, because if he hadn't, there was potentially going to be cause for his head. And I think it's a really good job that Pompey didn't ever succumb to the pressure while they were struggling of letting Mousinho go, because I do believe he's a great coach, and I think he's got a long run ahead of him as Pompey manager. Do I think they're going to secure survival? In my opinion, I think they're going to end on 48 points. I think they're going to pick up 6 points in the last 8 games. How they're going to pick up the 6 points, I'm not entirely sure. But for me, I think when we finish this season, Pompey will be on 48 points. I think they'll find themselves in 20th place come the end of the year. You can obviously let me know your thoughts down below. Shall we get into looking at the other promoted team Oxford United. Oxford United, similar to Pompey, find themselves on 42 points after 38 games. Now, a few months ago, they made the managerial switch, letting go of Des Buckingham and bringing in Gary Rowett, and it was a masterstroke to begin with. They went unbeaten for, I think, 7 or 8 games, which pushed them well out of relegation trouble and well into that mid-table fight, and gave Oxford United fans something to believe in. I think at one point they were just a few points outside of the playoffs, but ultimately that form has diminished over recent weeks, and obviously in their most recent game they picked up a 1-0 victory versus Watford, but before then they went 7 or 8 games without victory, a couple of draws in there, and ultimately it was very, very disappointing for them. Now Oxford United have a really, really good run in. They face 4 games at home against the likes of Sheffield United, QPR, Leeds United and Sunderland, but they also face away tests versus Middlesbrough, versus Sheffield Wednesday and Cardiff City, as well as an away trip on the final day versus Swansea City. Now for me, Oxford have one of the most difficult run-ins that anybody has across the course of the end of this season, especially for those teams in the relegation battle, facing up against promotion hopefuls in Middlesbrough, Sheffield United, and obviously Leeds and Sunderland is going to be very difficult. Now, obviously, a couple of them are at home, which makes it a little bit easier, but nothing is going to be easy when you're facing up against Sunderland, who are battling to make sure they secure their place in the playoffs, Leeds United, who are looking to secure the Championship League title, and then obviously Sheffield United, who are well within that fight as well, and Middlesbrough, who are obviously within that promotion push, although they have fell down the order a little bit in recent weeks. Now, obviously, the most important thing to talk about is that switch of manager. I think Gary Rowett has done an excellent job. They've brought in some really, really good players, in my opinion. You look at the like of Michael Heelick, you look in midfield, you look at what he's got out of Will Vaulks, you look at the return of Cameron Brannigan, and then you go in the front line where they've brought in Tom Bradshaw, who I think is an excellent championship striker. Not necessarily someone who's going to score you 20 goals a season, but someone who certainly knows the level, and obviously Ole Romene is a very, very good player as well. He's just a little bit raw. Now, for me, if we are obviously, again, like we did for Pompey, look at that XG table, where do Oxford find themselves, they're outperforming themselves in every single metric. They're 5 places higher than they should be. They've picked up 5 more points than they should have as well. Scored more, conceded less, and obviously that's a positive, but it also goes to show that they've performed to a really high standard this season on occasion, and that is what's put them in the position. They really should be within that relegation fight, and is it going to even itself out with this difficult running? You obviously look at Middlesbrough, who are a difficult test that they face up against on Saturday. You've got Sheffield United after that, which is going to be difficult. QPR isn't going to be easy. They obviously then got Leeds and Sunderland. The most important couple of games for them really is the Cardiff City away game, the Sheffield Wednesday away game, and obviously on that final day, Swansea City. Now, where do I think that Oxford United are going to end up? They're currently sitting on 42 points. If we look at the games they've got, in complete honesty, I wouldn't be surprised if they only picked up 4 or 5 points. Now, I think they're in a similar boat to Pompey, where I think they're going to get dragged into this relegation scrap, and I think they're going to be teetering on the edge when it comes to the final day. I again think they're going to end this season on 48 points. I think they're going to pick up 6 points before the end of the season. Will it be enough or won't it? That's going to be 48 points. It's going to be level with Pompey. Can they secure a better goal difference to finish in that place above? You'll have to let me know your thoughts down in the comments. But shall we now move on to Hull City? Hull City are the next team on the agenda, as they currently sit in 19th place with 41 points after 38 games. Now, they've been on a little bit of a decent run, securing 8 points in their final 4 games, which has obviously put them on playoff form, essentially, with 2 points per game. But obviously they've been on a difficult run this season, and that is why they find themselves within this relegation battle. Now, obviously they face some huge tests over the course of the next few weeks. They've got a massive game coming up at the end of this international break against Luton Town. They also face the likes of Derby County, Swansea City, and obviously Pompey on the final day. But if we look at their rundown in total, obviously you've got Luton at home, you've got Coventry at home, Preston at home, and Derby at home, but they also face tough away games for Sheffield Wednesday, Watford, Swansea and Portsmouth. Now, for me, Hull City shouldn't be where they are. They're very much in a false position, and that is because of the struggles that they had at the start of the year. And at one point, a lot of people wrote Hull off. Then they had that good run of form and got themselves back into contention and got themselves sort of out of the relegation scrap, but obviously are still within it just a little bit. In my opinion, a victory for them against Luton Town could pretty much seal their safety, in my opinion, because there's a few teams in and around that sort of area where I think that if they can sort of get themselves 3-4 points away from that safety position, where it ends up being just Derby County against Cardiff City or Derby County against Stoke in that sort of relegation scrap, I really think that it will sort of shut down those sorts of conversations that we're currently having with Hull City being in it. Obviously at the moment, 3 points they are away from Derby County, which is quite close. It's one win, and they do face up against each other across the course of the next few games, and that is really why they are in this fight. Now, I'm not saying that they have the easiest run in the world, because obviously they've got some tough games in there with obviously the likes of Coventry, the likes of Sheffield Wednesday, Watford, tough games. You look at the games they've got with the teams around them, with Swansea, Preston, Derby, and obviously Luton and Pompey, and they're all going to be tough games as well, because all the teams down at the bottom are fighting for their lives. Now, if we go and look at the XG chart, Hull City are underperforming massively. They're 3 places below where they should be. They're scoring less goals. They've got 8 less points than they are anticipated to have. And the only thing that they're really in a positive on is goals conceded. And that is obviously a good thing that they're on the top of that one. But ultimately, it has not been good enough. Now, for me, I think Hull City are going to find themselves safe. I personally believe that over the course of their final 8 games, I think they're going to pick up 4 wins. I do. And I think that will obviously put them on 12 more points than they're on now. It will put them on 53, which I believe will absolutely be safety. Now, where will those 4 wins come? I think they'll beat Luton Town. I think they'll beat Watford as well. I think they beat Preston. And I think they beat Swansea, in my opinion. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this one obviously turns out for Hull City. A very, very good team in this relegation battle, and one, in my opinion, who probably shouldn't be in there. They obviously changed manager as well earlier on in the year and brought in Ruben Sellers from Reading. He's done 21 games, 9 losses, 5 draws and 7 wins since December of 2024. But they've been a fairly decent outfit since he's come in. Can they push on and stay in this division? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. We're going to take a look now into Stoke City. Stoke City are the next team on the agenda, and they find themselves in 20th place on 39 points. Now, obviously, Stoke City changed manager earlier on this season. Twice, I think. Bought him, is it Pelash from Norwich City, and then obviously went on to Mark Robbins. And it's been a difficult time for Stoke City, and they've never really got going in this championship campaign. Now, obviously, when we look at their next run of games and the final 8 games of the season for them, it can be quite difficult if you look at it. The likes of Sheffield Wednesday, Leeds United, Sheffield United, and obviously on the final day, that tough task that they're going to have to face up against versus Derby County. Now, obviously, if we look at their games in full, it's Stoke City at home versus QPR. They also face up against Preston North End away. They face Luton Town at home, Cardiff City away, Sheffield Wednesday at home, Leeds United away, Sheffield United at home, and then obviously Derby County at Pride Park on the final day of the season, which ultimately could be the game which decides who stays in the division. Now, obviously, when you look at their run-in, I actually think it's one of the easier run-ins of the teams in this relegation battle. I think there's very much possibility for them to pick up 12 or 15 points, but obviously that would require a massive change in fortunes for Stoke City, who have been very, very disappointing this season. Now, if we look at the XG table, Stoke City are currently outperforming themselves. They're 2 places above where they should be, and they've conceded 11 less goals than they should have. They've collected the right amount of points, scored 6 less goals than they should have. But I think a lot of Stoke City's positives have come from their goalkeeper, Victor Johansson. What an unbelievable keeper he is. One of the best keepers in this division, in my opinion. And you can see why Rotherham United wanted a full £1 million for him. And in my opinion, they probably could have asked for a lot more. And it wouldn't surprise me if come the end of this season, Johansson moves on to a team at the top of the division. And you look at the games that they've got, QPR, Preston, Cardiff, Luton, their next 4 games could decide their season, in my opinion. A loss to Preston, a loss to Luton, a loss to Cardiff sees them ultimately fall into the relegation zone, in my opinion, because I think those teams around are going to pick up points in the next 3 games, and that's going to be the battle that Stoke City face and Mark Robins faces over the course of the next few weeks. You obviously look at Mark Robins, who came in January, 4 wins, 4 draws and 7 defeats, averaging 1.1 points per game so far as manager of Stoke City. And I like Mark Robins. I think he's a brilliant manager, and there's a lot that needs to change at this Stoke City team, because they're in a position where the club think they're better than what they are. They have a brilliant striker in Ali Al-Hamdi currently within their squad. I believe he's on loan till the end of the season. They've picked up a good player in Bosson Lowell. They've got some good players in that midfield as well, the likes of Lewis Baker, Moran, Ben Pearson, Secco, sorry. There's some really good players in this squad, and the big conversation for me has to be about is Mark Robins getting the most out of it? Obviously recently picked up a victory against Blackburn Rovers, but obviously before then it was 4 without win, and it's going to be interesting to see if Mark Robins can get this team over the line. You can obviously let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I think that they're going to end up probably on, I don't know, it's a very difficult one, because I just have a sneaky feeling that it's going to come down to the final day versus Derby County at Pride Park Stadium, and I think that atmosphere that will be created by the Derby County fans is going to kill Stoke City. Will it be Stoke have to win to stay up, Derby have to win to stay up, and that's going to be a battle of the Titans? Who knows? I think Stoke City are probably going to find themselves on maybe 45, 46 points come the end of the season. They've got a difficult run, but I do think that Stoke can pull themselves out of the difficulty in the next 4 games. You can obviously let me know your thoughts down in the comments. We're going to get on to Cardiff City next. It's really difficult to predict this championship run-in. Cardiff City are the next team on the agenda, as they have 39 points in 38 games, collecting 2 wins in their final 5 games and finding themselves well within reach of Derby County, the Pride Park outfit. It's going to be very, very interesting looking at this Cardiff City run-in, because it is not going to be easy for Cardiff. It is not going to be easy for any of those teams sort of down at the bottom. They face up against the likes of Sheffield Wednesday, QPR, Preston, Stoke City, Sheffield United, Oxford United, West Brom, and on the final day they travel to face the Canaries, Norwich City, on their home turf. It's going to be a very difficult run for me, and Cardiff City really need to start picking up some points. Obviously, picked up that win on the weekend just gone, which was a massive, massive win for them, because it kept them outside of the relegation zone. And for me, I think there is a massive possibility that if they lose to Sheffield Wednesday, Derby County win in midweek, that drops the confidence of Cardiff City, in my opinion. Now, the manager, Omar Rizza, stepped up after their former manager moved on, and he's done a fairly decent job, in my opinion. I think they were sat on 0 points after something like 7 or 8 games, which was obviously disappointing. But they've also really struggled to pick up positive results over the course of the last few weeks. And obviously it started off really well for Rizza, but it's not quite going to plan at the moment. And it's going to be interesting to see if he can sort of find a way around that over the course of the next few weeks. We obviously look at Cardiff City, and they're currently exactly where they should be. They've picked up 3 less points than expected and conceded 6 more goals than anticipated, but they've also scored 4 more goals than expected. So it's a very interesting situation to discuss. And I think in these final few games, you look at the games versus Sheffield United and West Brom, and obviously that final day against Norwich City, and I think they're the big ones, because I think if they can pick up points in those games, it really opens up the door for survival. Now, the main focus for them is going to be on the Stoke City game. The Stoke City game. It's going to be on the Oxford game. It's going to be on the Preston North End game, because they're the ones that are the teams around them. Do I think Cardiff City can do it? In my opinion, if I have to be brutally honest, I think Cardiff City are going to be the team that go down in 22nd place. I think they're only going to pick up 5 points over the course of the end of this season, and I think they're going to sort of slumber across the line. And I do think that they're going to finish in 22nd place on 44 points. It's going to be interesting to see how that does happen. Can Omar Rizza prove me wrong? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Let's get on to talking all about Derby County. Derby County currently fill one of the 3 relegation places as they sit on 38 points in 38 games. But a recent turnaround from John Eustace at Derby County has saw them back to life. A few weeks ago, they were 7 points from safety, but they currently have picked up 9 points in their last 9 available and find themselves just 1 point away from Coventry. Coventry from Cardiff City. And now the running for Derby County is quite difficult. They face up against the likes of Preston, Swansea, Burnley, Pompey, Luton Town, West Brom, Hull City, and on the final day, Stoke City. But are they going to be able to secure survival in this division? I do think there's a good possibility for Derby County, and I think that it's really all going to ride on what happens over the course of those games versus Preston and Swansea and Luton Town, because they're massive games in the conversation of survival. Now, if Derby County can beat Preston in 10 days time, then I think they've got a massive chance at securing survival in this division, because I think if you keep applying the pressure, you go 4 wins from 4 and ultimately those teams above you will fumble. Now, obviously, if we look at the XG chart for this season, Derby County are 3 places worse off than they should be. They've scored 1 more goal than expected, conceded 5 more, and collected 8 less points than anticipated. And across the course of this season, I could probably say Derby County have dropped 10 to 12 points from positions and situations where they shouldn't have, and that is not a surprise for me. Now, Derby County's biggest problem this season has been their away form, but their home form has been the mantelpiece. There's 4 home games left for them: Preston, Burnley, Luton and Stoke. In my opinion, if they can pick up 2 wins and a draw, that's 7 points, from those final 4 home games, I personally think they'll survive. I think they can pick up a couple of victories on the road. I think they'll beat Hull City, and I think it'll be really tight in the games versus Swansea and Pompey. Now, I'm writing off the games versus Burnley and West Brom, but I do think it's going to be absolutely massive for Derby County. The change of manager to John Eustace was an absolute masterstroke by owner David Clowes. And yes, it didn't quite start off well with 3 losses in the first 3 games, but 3 wins in the final 3 games have been a massive turnaround for Derby, currently averaging 1.5 points a game. And I said a few weeks ago, if Derby County want to survive in this division, they've got to put up playoff numbers, and that's what they've done in the last 3 games. 9 points from 9 is something that I don't think any team has put up in the last 5 games. I don't think any team has won the last 3 in a row. And obviously for Derby County, it's a lot more than just the last 3 games. They've got the next 8 to contend with. I think they need 4 wins to secure survival, which would put them on 50 points. And I do think that they are going to do it. I think they're going to finish on 50 points, which would put them ahead of where I think Pompey are going to be, where I think Oxford are going to be, where I think Hull, Stoke and Cardiff are all going to be. And it's going to be very interesting to see if it does happen. Obviously, I'm a Derby County fan. I'm a little bit biased on this one. So let me know your thoughts on Derby's end to the campaign down in the comments. It's going to be very, very interesting. Let's go on to the final 2 teams. Let's take a look at Luton Town and let's take a look at Plymouth Argyle. Luton Town find themselves 4 points from safety with 35 points in 38 games. And they've got a tough task ahead of them if they want to secure survival. But they've got some big games in the next few weeks. They face up against Derby County. They face up against Stoke City and they face up against Hull City in games which are going to be massive for their survival chances. Now, obviously, if Hull City are to beat Luton Town this upcoming weekend, then obviously, in my opinion, Derby County then go on to win versus Preston in midweek. I think it really shuts down Luton's chances of staying in this division, but obviously it then all falls on what Cardiff City do, what Stoke do, and they do have a difficult task of games. They face Hull City away from home, Leeds United at home, Stoke City away, Blackburn at home, Derby away, Bristol City at home, Coventry at home, and on the final day they travel to West Bromwich Albion. Now, obviously it's not going to be an easy run for Luton Town, and if they don't survive, I think they're the first team since Sunderland that will have done a double relegation from Premier League all the way down to League One. And they do have a good squad, in my opinion. They've got some really, really good players in their squad. And I'm not quite sure why they're so bad, to be completely honest. You look at the forward line of Morris, Adebayo, you look at Jacob Brown, you look at Isaiah Jones, you even look at Lassie Nordas, who's a player who Derby County were chasing after in the January window. You look in the midfield, you look at Teo Elsgaard, you look at Taif Chong, Jordan Clark, Marvellous and Kemba, Shandon Baptiste. Very, very good players. Even in the back line, the likes of Ted and Mengi, Kai Naismith, Reece Burke, Amari Bell, Alfie Doherty. Some really, really good players in there. I think Doherty was angling after an England call-up at some points last season in the Premier League, but obviously that hasn't come to fruition. Now, for me, if we look at the XG chart for Luton Town, are they where they should be? In my opinion, no. Obviously, the XG chart says that as well. They've picked up 14 less points than they should have done, conceded 11 more goals than they should have done, and scored at 9 less. They're 8 places lower, than they should be. They should be sitting comfortably in mid-table, but for one reason or another, results have not gone their way, and they find themselves in that relegation scrap, currently sitting 4 points away. And this is why I think this upcoming weekend's games are absolutely massive. If Derby County secure 3 points against Preston in midweek, then that could put them, obviously, what would it be, 6 points away from 22nd. It could put them, obviously, if Cardiff win their game, 7 points away from safety. It's going to be a very, very interesting run-in. Can Luton Town do it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I think they're going to get 5 points from the last 8 games. I think they're going to finish on 40 points, and I do think that they're going to be one of those relegated teams, joining Cardiff City, heading down to League One. Let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments. Let's talk finally about Plymouth Argyle. Plymouth Argyle are the final team on this list. It's 33 points from 38 games. It's 4 points from their last 5, and it's going to be a difficult run for them because they've got to make up 6 points before they can even think about safety. And that means that every team above them has to lose at least 2 games. And it's going to be difficult for Plymouth Argyle. And I don't necessarily believe they have the easiest run-in. They face up against Watford Saturday coming up. They face up against Norwich City the Saturday after. They've got Sheffield United to face. They've got Coventry City and Middlesbrough. They face Swansea in there as well as Preston North End. And on the final day, they host Leeds United. It doesn't get any easier, does it, for Plymouth Argyle? And if I'm completely honest, I think their fate was sealed earlier in the season. Both Plymouth and Derby County at one point or another were sitting 7 or 8 points off survival and fought back. But can either of them end up surviving? Derby County are currently the closest. And for me, Plymouth Argyle, I don't necessarily believe they're in a false position. But what does the XG chart say? And it says exactly what I thought. They've scored more than expected. They've conceded more than expected. But they've picked up more points than expected as well. And they're sitting exactly where they should be, at the foot of the Championship League table. Now, it was disappointing for them under Wayne Rooney, obviously making that change to Miran Mulisic. I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name. And he's not necessarily been awful, but he's not been great. 16 matches, 5 wins, 4 draws and 7 defeats. It's not quite been enough for him to take them into those safe positions, but he did obviously come into a difficult run. And the interesting conversation about this Plymouth Argyle team is, do they have enough in the squad? I do think they have some good players in there. You look at Obafemi, you look at Hardy, you look at Isaka, you look at Bundu. I do think there's good players in there. I like Callum Wright. And it's difficult looking at this squad because I don't necessarily believe it's Championship calibre. I do think there's good players in there, but I don't think it's Championship calibre. And it's going to be interesting to see how that obviously progresses over the course of the next 8 games. I think they're probably going to pick up, in my opinion, 9 points, which would put them on... 40 points to end the season, which would leave them level with Luton Town. It'd put them in a similar place to that of Cardiff City and Stoke City. But ultimately, I do think Plymouth Argyle are going to go down at the rock bottom of the Championship League table. It's been very interesting to look into these teams across the course of the final 8 games and what they've done across the course of this season. Obviously, you can let me know who you think is going to stay in the Championship. There'll obviously be your choice to have a say down in the comments, because it's going to be difficult. Can Swansea be dragged into it? Can QPR be dragged into it over the course of the next few weeks? Obviously, Preston North End are another team who could fall into the clutches of that relegation zone could, if Derby County continue to win 3 in a row, if Cardiff City continue to pick up results. But obviously, you can have your say down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts down there. If you have not done so already, hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and I'll catch you in my next video.